one with everything. This is the one thing it takes, this recognition that we are one with everything, to get us back into that space where we recognize that we are a fully empowered soul. And being a fully empowered soul, all that is when we are calling forth our divine nature. The resilience, the stamina, the clarity of our soul, we call it forth into our life. And right now, these are the qualities that we need, because we're past the tipping point. We're past the tipping point. It has happened. We are once again at the beginning of a journey that we have not taken before. Now, some of us are calling this a revolution on the ground. Some of us are calling this a planetary transformation. But it's our judgments and it's our perceptions that are going to influence how we see what's happening and how we experience it. And that will influence what we do next. Now, when we embody the Christ consciousness, when we are our centered self, what we do next is always powerful and pure, because we are literally and figuratively expressions of God in this world. We are the manifestation of that source substance. This is how we are the hands and the heart of God in this world, because we are the physical expression of the divine. Now, our soul is always fully empowered, but we have to open the way for that. We have to open that door. Okay, we're already wired to be fully empowered. We just have to flip on the switch. Well, in our case, we have to clear the way. But just like tonight, after the sun goes down, you're not going to sit in your house and wish for light. Your house is already wired with electricity. You'll just flip on the light when it gets too dark for you to read. Your house is already wired, and we are already wired. We are wired with stamina, resilience, and clarity. We just have to clear the way. And really, the major obstacle that we're facing is our perception. Because our perception only contains a limited awareness. It's just this much of what we can see. And we also bring our past experiences in to influence it. You know, Friday, I heard about the fire that we had locally here in Redlands at the Amazon warehouse, but I didn't hear about it until Friday night. And I went to go on, social media to find out the facts about this fire. And commenters, people were posting comments saying it had to be looters. It had to be rioting. Because, well, that's going on in our area. It is. There's a city not very far from us had a lot of burning buildings and damage done. And so it's kind of like, well, of course our minds would just go there because there's so much happening. But when I checked this morning, it's still under investigation, and it's actually looking like electrical issues, or it might even be connected to a fire that happened a month ago. The thing with our perception is we don't know what we don't know. We just don't know. So how can we stop viewing the world and all of these events through our limited perspective and instead be fully in this world, in our Christ consciousness, in our centered self, so that we remain calm and we are confident and we have curiosity, right? This open mind allows us to be curious about things, which gives us greater clarity. And then we have courage. We have courage so we can express compassion and consideration even in situations that we do not fully understand. We can express compassion and consideration to people that we feel like we can't relate to. So Paul was talking about how we do this, how we can show up. And he was giving a reminder in one of his letters to the Thessalonians, and he said, "You are all children of the light, you are all children of the day. You are not the children of night, nor are you the children of darkness." Now, night and darkness are just the metaphors for limited perception. If you didn't get home tonight until after 11 o'clock and your house was in the dark, and somebody had gone in ahead of time and rearranged your living room, and you tried to walk into your own living room, your perception would be very limited. It wouldn't make sense to you based on your previous experience of being in your living room. All right, and so this is what it means to be in night and darkness. We can't gain understanding if we don't understand where we are presently, so we can't increase our understanding. Then we might fall into the trap of self-righteousness out of our ignorance. Now, this is a really hard place to be. We're not designed to be there. We're not designed to be in that state of mind where we have to make other people wrong so we can be right. That's why it doesn't feel good. And sometimes we end up doing that to the point of destroying our relationships. And we're put here on this planet to connect with each other, not destroy our connections. That's why it brings suffering with us. We are not designed for that. We're not the children of limitation. We're not the children of ignorance. We're children of light. We're children of the day. We are the activity of spirit in this world. We are divinely designed to be radiating centers of peace and grace generators and love amplifiers. But when we get scared, we get stuck in the problem. We get divine amnesia. We forget who we are and where we come from and what it is that works through us and for us and as us. We forget that we're children of light. Now, Paul also said, so that we can handle this, right, so we don't keep forgetting all the time, he told us what to do. He said, stir up the gift of God. Stir it up. Shake it up, stir it up. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of good discipline. Now, I talk about power, love, good discipline all the time. But he's saying also stir up the gift of God. Now, in our unity principles, they remind us that knowing the principles is not enough. We must live them. Living the principles is what stirs up the gift of God. And we love the unity principles. That's why we're here. The first time we read the unity principles, they vibed inside of us. They lit us up from within. So by living these principles, that's stirring up the gift of God. And the first principle is that God is all things. God is all things, everything that's ever been, everything that's yet to be. This universe was created by one divine being, and you can call it the Big Bang or you can call it God. But it's love, light, and life with a capital L. Everything that's ever been, everything that's yet to be. This one thing, it sent itself out into infinite expressions, and it continues to do so through all of its creations. And you are its creation, and I am its creation. And the way that it keeps sending itself out through us is through our activities, through our kindness, through our compassion, through ideas and inspirations. So when we can remember just these two things, that God is all things, and that means us, it changes what we do next. Whatever we do next, when we remember these two things, whatever we do next, we'll do with courage and clarity, because we'll be thinking about our connection with each other, our connection to those near, but also those that we are connected with because we're all on the same planet. Okay, those that we are connected to the entire cosmos. We are connected to all of the souls, even if they're not on this planet in a body right now. We are deeply connected to it all. And when we walk in that truth, it changes what we do next. And we know that what we do next matters. There is nothing stopping us right now from being a fully empowered soul, except our perceptions. And our perceptions, we know, are based on beliefs that may or may not be true. A few years ago, in just the period of one day, a few hours apart, I had one person call me a Bible thumper. I had one person call me an atheist. And I'm neither one of those things. That was their perception. Their perception didn't make it true, but it was their truth, and they weren't going to budge. They didn't want to engage with me. They just wanted their belief. Okay? To live as a fully empowered soul, we are calling forth the divine qualities that keep us from getting stuck in a limited and restrictive perception. Instead, we're bringing the divine out into our life. Okay, we embody curiosity. This expands our mind. It gives us greater clarity. We have courage, so we can act with compassion and consideration. This helps us to understand that what is happening right now, whether you are angry and raging, or you are sick with worry and fear, you, as a fully empowered soul, you will act differently in this world than a being that is mired in fear, doubt, and hate. Because you're going to call forth curiosity and courage and clarity. And that will change what you do next. I think about the goddess Kuan Yin a lot because I have a statue of her here in my office. She's the goddess of mercy and compassion. And she had a hard life. She didn't live to old age. She died young, I believe. She had a terrible father, a really awful, awful man he was. But she still had mercy for him, so much so that she gave up her eyes to save his life, right? Well, the powers that be saw her as such a merciful, compassionate soul. Her sight was restored somehow. And when she died, the gates of heaven swung wide open for her. Now she stood at the gates, but she looked at our planet. She saw all the suffering. She saw all the atrocities. And she couldn't go. She would not cross over that gate. She would not go through that gate while there was even one person here suffering. She wasn't going to go until we could all go. That is an enlightened soul living in a body. All of our souls are enlightened. But she brought that enlightenment through. That is a soul with stamina and resilience to stay among the suffering and the atrocities and still have mercy and compassion for all of humanity. Even the people that hurt her the most. She had mercy and compassion for them. The lack of mercy and compassion in this world right now is the reason we just went over a tipping point. We've hit rock bottom. As a whole, collectively, we hit rock bottom. And I think a lot of people think that if we have mercy and compassion for someone, that it means there are no consequences for them. There's still consequences. But when we can have mercy and compassion for anybody, for anyone, even somebody who hasn't earned mercy and compassion, when we have that mercy and compassion for them, we call forth the higher forces through us. This is how we become a force for good. We don't have to worry about who to save or who not to save. We don't guide the higher forces. We just open the door for them to come through us. They know, those higher forces know what to do. The higher forces know where to go. So our job is not to tell them what to do. Our task is to unleash them. Our task is to unleash the good upon the world so we can all go together. All go together. I think this is why Eric Butterworth said that our task is not to set things right. Our task is not to set things right, but to see them right. Because our perception will get in the way. So our task is to remember, to see things right, is to remember every person is a soul in a body. Not just the kind people, not just the blue hats, not just the red hats. All the hats. All the hats are a soul in a body. and all those who don't wear a hat. Okay? Everyone is a soul and a body. We are only a force for good when we can give mercy and compassion to whoever needs it. Whoever needs it. Do you remember the pandemic? Like, remember that pandemic? And collectively, for a moment, we were all united. Okay, remember at the beginning of that pandemic that I guess we're still in it, but we're not talking about it. But we were united. And it was, we're all in this together. That was our hashtag, right? All in this together. But there are forces that always are seeking to divide us. And it didn't take long for the pandemic for there to be division. The masks versus the not masks. The you're trying to kill me versus you're trying to take away my freedoms and kill me. Right? There's always divisiveness. And there are forces right now seeking to divide us. There are forces right now that are seeking to keep us at each other's throats. This is because when we are one, when we recognize and we unify as a whole, we would be unstoppable. If we as a planet united as a whole, that would be heaven on earth. That would be heaven on earth. The corporations, the governments, if they didn't bust out some serious integrity, they would crumble. We would be rebuilding a new earth. We would be creating a new earth together. Because life is about benefiting all of life. And when we are unified, we remember this. I don't know if you remembered when I talked about Ubuntu before. Ubuntu is this idea that it is our connection to each other that grows us. Okay, it's our connection to each other that brings out the best in us. And the idea that how can one of us be happy if somebody else is sad, right? The Ubuntu, the tribes in Africa who practiced this idea of Ubuntu before it became like a thing, I guess, they would, if there was one person in their tribe that was acting out, if there was one person in their tribe that was doing harm to themselves or another, what they would do is they would gather together in a circle. They would come together to remind this person of who they are, who they really are, and the root of good that is in them. They didn't punish this person. They were reminding them. They were calling them back to them. They were loving them back into the circle of belonging. This is the practice of Ubuntu, and the power that is behind Ubuntu is mercy and compassion and remembering that we are all one. We are all one. Right now is the time, like spiritual people, like we've been preparing for this big time, and it's now. Right now is the time for us to act as if we are living in the whole of creation, to act as if we are all one. Act as if. And to pray as if we are all one. What? Walk the walk, right? Our unity principle. It's not enough to know this stuff. We have to live it. So to live it, that means we're stirring up the gifts of God. So I'm going to issue an invitation because this is what is happening in our world right now. This is what's happening if it's not directly in our life. It's happening to somebody we care about, or to somebody that someone we care about, cares about. And I'm going to issue an invitation on a different way to look at Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. If there's somebody in a car accident, the paramedics will arrive on the scene. And they have to assess all the injuries in the person who was in the accident. They may have many injuries. They may have a broken leg. They may have a lump on their head and a black eye. But they also may have a punctured lung. The paramedic assesses all of the injuries and they have to focus on the dire injury. Because it's the dire injury that needs to be treated first for the body to survive. It's not that the broken leg or the broken collarbone or the concussion, the black eye, it's not that none of those things matter. The whole body matters. But for the body to survive, the paramedic has to treat the most dire injury first. Yes, the well-being of the whole body matters. But if a punctured lung isn't treated, if a hemorrhage isn't treated, all the other parts aren't going to be given a chance at survival either. Because we are unity folk, and we love the unity principles, and we want to stir up the gifts of God, because we want to bring heaven on earth. That's really what we want. We remember God is all things. All are one, and that means us. We are the grace generators and the love amplifiers. We are also the spiritual paramedics. The body of humanity right now has an area where it's hemorrhaging, okay, where it can't breathe. So we're focusing the mercy and the compassion onto the body of humanity where it is needed right now. Now, in our lives, we are always going to have to pay attention to areas in our personal lives where we may be hemorrhaging out. We have to look at the package of our life. We have to look at our own physical body, what's going on in our own physical body, and then what's going on in the area of our relationships, and then what's going on in how we show up in the other areas of our life, like our career, our job, how we're of service. We always want to look at the entire package. Then we go beyond that to the collective, to the whole, because we know what is in the one is in the whole. We focus mercy and compassion where it is needed. Where it is needed, because what we do next matters. A fully empowered soul will act differently in this world than a being that is mired in fear, doubt, and hatred. And so right now, think about all of the good that you can do. And you know what? The good that you can do, it does not have to be sensational, because even a small act of kindness is a door opener. Okay, remember, the universe is an expanding universe. That's the nature of the universe, is expansion. That means it can come through a tiny door, but as soon as it gets through the door, it expands. Okay? So any act of kindness is a door. So even a little thing we could do. Like, I love hearing about the people driving through Starbucks or McDonald's and the person ahead of them paid for their meal. That's a tiny act of kindness. I see you, Jared. That's a tiny act of kindness, but it calls forth more good. There is a man, none of you have heard of him. You can't find his quotes on Brainy Quote. His name is Frank Sanborn. He did what to him was just a small act of kindness that turned out to be a catalyst for something really big. And he probably never knew he was the catalyst. But this man, he lived in Massachusetts, and he was an investigator for an almshouse. In 1880, he went to this one almshouse because it was decrepit. Like, it was in dire straits. And he met this young girl, well, like an older girl, young teenager, and she had had it really rough. Her mother died. Her father couldn't handle it, and he dumped his kids off at the almshouse. All she had was her brother. All she had in the whole world was her brother. But her brother got really sick and died there. She got a crazy bacterial infection in her eye that stuck with her the rest of her life, and eventually she was almost completely blind. She didn't want to live in this almshouse for the rest of her life as a blind person who couldn't take care of herself. Her only option was to be the maid there and continue to live in horrible circumstances, or she could go live on the street and beg for her survival. And she didn't want to do either of those things. So this investigator, Frank, shows up at the almshouse, and she goes to him. She talks him into sending her to a school for the blind. So he does this for her. She graduates and she becomes a teacher herself. Her name was Anne Sullivan. She became the teacher and the lifelong companion to Helen Keller, who was both blind and deaf. Now, Helen Keller was a force for good that you all heard of. Okay, she was a political activist, she was a published author, and she was a very well-known public speaker, and she inspired millions of people. Helen made an impact in a huge way. But so did Frank Sanborn. You just never heard of him. Helen Keller and Frank Sanborn both were radiant souls who brought out the best in others. They were lights on the ground. Lights on the ground. And that is your task. That's my task. To be a light on the ground right now. To be that radiant soul who brings out the best in others. Someone who is filled with fear brings out the worst in others. That's where the rioting is coming from. It's from fear. Okay, this is where these gatherings where there's hate. This is all coming from fear. Anything that is an us versus them is always based in fear. Now, we express ourselves in this world in one of two ways. We are either in motion or in stagnation. All right? We can only be in motion when we know what we want. Okay, when we know what we want, okay, whether that's freedom, equality, peace, love, purpose, when we know what we want, that is desire. That calls forth the cosmic force of love through us. Love as a cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. Its qualities are attraction and unification. This is why when we are standing for something we love, when we are standing for something that matters to us, okay, that we want to see manifest in this world, we have forward motion because of the attraction and the unification will pull us toward what we want. We're drawn together. Now, if we're focused on something we hate, there's no forward motion because there's no desire to create. Okay, we're focused on something we hate. No cosmic forces are being called forth through us. All we can experience when we are focusing on what we hate, what we don't want, is stagnation and inertia. Focusing on hate never created anything that changed our lives for the better. Hate is stagnation, inertia. It's decomposing energy. Love is desire and attraction and unification. It is from love that great poetry that moves our souls is created. It is from love that the songs that open our hearts up so wide, we just find ourselves sobbing. Okay, it is from love that those songs are born. The stories where we resonate with a hero and we feel like we're understood by this author we've never met. These are creations from love. Hate has never created anything that has helped us. A fully empowered soul will act differently in this world than a being mired in fear, doubt, and hatred. To be a fully empowered soul, you have to have a strong back, a soft front, and a warrior heart, because it can be damn hard to have mercy and compassion for something you don't like very much. And it takes courage to have mercy and compassion for all beings. It takes no courage to hate. Courage only comes from a fully empowered soul. God is all things, and that means me. That means you. Right now, our task is the one of caring for each other. Our task is the one of looking after each other. How we have mercy and compassion for each other in this transition is going to change what happens next. Our redemption, the redemption of everybody, depends on this. You know, metaphysically, what redemption is when we elevate our life to meet our spiritual values, to be in alignment with our divine nature. That's us walking the walk. Walking the walk. Helen Keller said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." Okay, think about these three things. Tiny acts of kindness open big doors. God is all things. That's the second thing. God is all things. And that means us. That means us. And when we remember our connection, we remember our connection to each other, to the people who are easy to be connected to, but also to the people at large who we don't understand, and to the whole planet, it changes what we do next. What we do next matters. And when we act from our centered self with courage, we get increased clarity. We know what we want. When we know what we want, we release those cosmic forces through us and into the world. That's how we create heaven on earth. So, until next time, remember, you are the activity of soul and a body. You're the heart and you are the hands of spirit in this world. You are a soul designed to do all of this stuff. You're designed for this. You are hardwired for this. And everything you do, you are blessed. And so it is.